just more like an introduction, but I'll explain things into details. I'll try as much as possible to give things into details. And that is going to help us in the practical session. So let's do our best to try and take as many notes that we can. And the key points, right? Key points. Just if something touches you that, oh, okay, this is something that I need to note it down, please write it down because I will be explaining. So today we're going to start the healthcare. So Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act, popularly known as hipaa. hipaa is also an interesting area. So it's basically has to do with the healthcare environment, how protected health information is protected, or PHI. Some literature, they call it personal health information, right? But the right word is protected health information. So this is the outline. First, we're going to know what is hipaa is about. We'll learn about a little bit about privacy. We'll learn, we'll be focusing more on the security side of hipaa. We'll learn about the safeguards. We'll also learn about the implementation specifications. We'll look at all the implementation specifications, the required and addressable, then some other rules that were added to hipaa, the omnibus rule, the high-tech, and the breach notification. So we'll touch those ones today. So today's session is session 1 of hipaa. And basically, my duty this morning is to help you to understand hipaa, right? When somebody talk about hipaa, you should be able to know what hipaa is, right? Then the second part that is going to be on Wednesday is going to be the practical session. So we'll learn how hipaa security assessment is performed. And it's going to be an interesting session. So those of you who are so much interested in the healthcare area, this is the area that we are starting now. Good, so let's start. Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act, that is hipaa. So whenever you hear hipaa, it's Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act. And this was formed in 1996 to protect patients' health information, right? Patient health information, popularly known as protected health information. Protected health information. And for your information, PHI is more expensive than credit card in the dark web, right? The dark web is where people steal your information and they sell it, right? They sell it, but PHI is more expensive compared to credit card. And the question is, why is PHI, my health record, more expensive than credit card? Can somebody tell me? Why is it? Why is it like that? You can raise your hand. Why should the your health records or your health information be expensive than your credit card? Because if somebody gets your credit card, the person can use it to buy and do shopping, right? But why, if the person you get your health record, how is the person going to use it? Can somebody try? Okay, so
because your identity is much more important, identity theft.
Yes, identity theft is one of them, right? Good one. Vincent, your hand is up.
Yeah, I'm thinking that the insurance pays more when your health insurance records are stolen.
Really? Yeah, it's correct, but not the key one.
Can I say something?
We get on that. Yes, Bala.
It's because your health stuff, you have all your social security, all your information. your date of birth, everything on there.
Okay, so that is true. That is true. But not the key thing that I'm looking for.
Right.
Yeah, Balaji. Your hand is up. Hello. If you are speaking, we can hear you. Maybe you have a problem with your mic. So I'll give the chance to.
Can I go ahead? This is Osman.
Okay, Osman, go ahead.
Yes, I believe health information is costly because pharmaceutical companies and other companies pay much for it because that's why they do targeted advertisement, know who needs what, and what information they can directly advertise to you. So they will pay much for that information.
That is true. That is very true.
Can I say something?
Good. Yeah. Okay, yeah, Charles, go ahead.
Yeah, well, it's just simple. Your health record is you. If somebody got a record of your record, it's like you're in prison. It's just your entity, you as a person. Credit card is something else you can turn off anytime, and it's not you. It's
point.
It's not attached to you.
Good
But your
point.
information is you. It's like they have you in prison, you know?
That's right. That's right. So, Charles, in addition to what Osman said, is true. Let's give one person another chance, the last person, MJ, so that we go on. MJ, your hand is up. Joyce, your hand is up. You have the floor. You can unmute yourself, or it's by mistake. Okay, then I'll give it to John. Then we continue. John.
Yeah, Alex, I believe your health is your life, and your health represents entirely to right. So if you want to stand for every presidency and you have issue, it goes against you. You want to stand for any position in job, everything, people get hold of your health records. Some are private. They disclose it. You can easily be disqualified and a whole lot of things. So your health records is you. It's your life.
That is true. You guys got it, right? Right. Sorry, I put your hand down because I just want us to go up because the answer is here already. So that let's continue. We have a lot to cover today, right? You got it. Somebody said record card, credit card, you can turn it off. Whenever you see somebody is using your credit card, you just call the company, hey, somebody is using my credit, they'll cut it, they'll do investigation and they change it and give you a new card. But what about your health record? It's you, right? That is your record. It's about you. Pharmaceuticals love it. Advertising companies love it. Political opponents love it, right? They'll just dig it out and tell you that this so and so person that is going for the position, right, has this serious condition. When you give it to the person is not going to last, right? That is it. So health record, and it can never be changed. If you go to clinic and they said you have been diagnosed with this record, it's on your record forever. It can never be changed. So even if you say, oh, I'm no more suffering from this sickness, some people can use it against you, right? So health record are very, very important. So HIPAA rules are in two forms, privacy and security rules. So we'll cover that. So the HIPAA rules apply to two groups. I think somebody has made a statement that he cannot find. Okay, he's found it. He said, never mind. Right. So HIPAA rule apply to two groups. The first one is called covered entities. Covered entities. And the second group is business associates. So when we talk about covered entities, these are the health plan, the healthcare clearinghouses, the healthcare providers who process, right? Who provide, healthcare provider who electronically store, process, and transmit any health information, right? If you process, you store, you transmit any health information about patients, you fall within HIPAA. You must comply with HIPAA, right? It's very, very important. You must comply with HIPAA. So examples are the hospitals, the practice doctors, the pharmaceutical companies, the health insurance companies, right? Now it's like those people counseling, they collect all those kind of information. Business associate. So it's a person or entity that performs certain functions or activities that involve the use or disclosure of protected health information on behalf of or provide services to a covered entity. So example like an IT company, healthcare organizations uses so many IT softwares, hardware, right? Those hardware also have access to PHI. So HIPAA law covers them too. Those business associates need to comply with the HIPAA law. So remember, two groups. So let's touch briefly on the HIPAA privacy rule. We don't do privacy, but it's good we have a fair idea about privacy. We work directly with the privacy officers, right? Sometimes some engagements are there, they are collecting some data. You don't know whether it falls within HIPAA or you are not really sure about that. So you work with the privacy officer. So the HIPAA privacy rule, it provides federal protection for PHI and gives patients right to their own PHI. So the privacy rule says that you can walk to a covered entity, your practice doctor or your hospital, and say, give me all my medical records, right? And they can't say, no, we can't give it to you. By law, they are supposed to provide all to you. You can get all your medical records without any reservation. It permits the disclosure of PHI needed for patient care and other important purposes. So the privacy rule says that, look, if you are a clinic, you cannot just get up and say that I cannot walk to a clinic and say, give me Betty's PHI information. No. So whatever disclosure that they need the right permission and the right authorization. And sometimes to the federal government, the FBI or whatever, they have to go through the law and the security agencies. They have to go through proper authorization processes before those information is released. So privacy rules spells out administrative responsibilities, discusses written agreement between covered entity and business associate. We call it business associate agreement, BAA. We will learn about that, right? So anytime there is an engagement between a covered entity, right? Whenever you hear covered entity, let's think about hospital. Example, it's hospital, right? It's a covered entity, right? Anytime there's an engagement between a covered entity and a business associate, like maybe an IT provider, they are providing a software that manage the electronic health record, right? There has to be a business associate agreement, BAA, and it is more of legal document, right? That spells out how each of the entities are going to protect the PHI, right? So you share is the legal team that work on that. So discusses the need for privacy policies and procedures. They describe employer responsibility to train workforce members and implement requirements regarding their use and disclosure of PHI. So it's a privacy and the legal team right to make sure that employees are well trained, right? PHI is a serious thing. You don't play with PHI in a covered entity. If you joke with PHI, you will lose your work. So privacy team is to train people how to handle PHI, right? So example is train employees on its privacy and policies and procedures, properly dispose of document containing PHI, right? If a document contains PHI, you cannot just say throw it into a bin, right? We will learn about physical security. We do walkthroughs, walk through clinics to see whether people are just tossing PHI paper with patient's name and medical information, and are they tossing them into a bin, right? It is a big issue. You train people how to handle medical records, so secure medical record with lock and keys. Any medical records, you don't leave it on table. People need to be trained so that if it's a confidential PHI, you lock it in a drawer, right, where people cannot have access to it. Even if you are walking away from your workstation or your desk, make sure it's locked at an appropriate area. So that is what privacy does, but we are not going deep into that. So at least this high-level knowledge is good. We work directly with the team. But where we're going to dwell most is the HIPAA security rule. That is our work, right? HIPAA security rule. It requires covered entities and business associates to implement safeguards to protect electronic protected health information. Now we've added electronic to it. And one thing about this work is that if you are doing HIPAA, you learn to use HIPAA terms. Okay, use HIPAA terms. So electronic protected health information or protected health information that is stored, processed, or transmitted. It specifies it specifies the 3 categories. So HIPAA security has 3 categories. It has administrative, physical, and technical safeguards that ensure the CIA of electronic protected health information. CIA it ensures confidentiality, integrity, and availability of electronic health protected health information, right? So security rule protects health information held or transmitted in an electronic form. And that was the initial point, but it's not now. It's not only electronic form, but paper form too is also need to be protected. Paper form need to be protected. When you print a paper with the name and details of a patient and their medical condition, you can't say that this is not PHI, so you can't protect it. No, you have to protect it. So example is designate a security officer who will learn about that. Create policies and procedures, right? We will learn about that. Ensure all employees have unique identification and password, limit physical access to facilities. So these are all examples of security rules, but we're going to go deep into that. So we said HIPAA security has 3 categories, 3 main categories. So the first category is administrative safeguards. Administrative safeguards. So here we're looking at policies and procedures designed to show how a covered entity will comply with the security rule. So whenever you hear procedural safeguard, procedural control is the same as administrative safeguards. It's the same as administrative safeguard. So whenever you hear that, the same thing, administrative or procedural, it deals with policies and procedures, right? So under the administrative safeguard, we have 9 standards. So if we're to be in the FISMA that we just learned, now put your FISMA thinking aside, put it now, let it rest, okay? What we learned under the federal environment that we finished on Wednesday, put it aside, put it on the shelf for a little while, okay? Then take a new cap. That is a healthcare that we're doing today, right? So in the HIPAA area, or sorry, the healthcare, the FISMA area, they call it controls, security controls. But when you come to the healthcare environment, they are no more calling them controls, but they are safeguards. So whenever you have HIPAA job and you are explaining yourself, don't be saying that, oh, they should have this control in place, they should have administrative control, they should have a fiscal. No. The person automatically think, this person doesn't really know what he's talking about. He knows it, but he's not using the right term. So use the terms. When it comes to HIPAA, we call it administrative safeguard, or we use the term safeguard, but not control. Good. So under the administrative safeguards, we have 9 standards. We have 9 standards. So first one is security management process, assign security responsibility, workforce security, information access management, security awareness and training, security incident procedure, contingency plan, evaluation, and business associate contract. So these are the 9 standards under the administrative, right? So I just gave example of some of the safeguards here: assign a security officer, security awareness training, internal audit, contingency plan for emergency, procedure for reporting security incidents. So then we have physical safeguards, right? Whenever you hear about physical, it's more like physical safeguard or physical control. It's more about the measures, day-to-day measures to secure your environment, like locking your door, locking your files. That's what physical talks about. Hello, Betty, your hand is up.
So, Brother Alex, in this, in hipaa, there are no security control selections where you have to determine the watermark, whether high or this is the administrative, the physical, that's the security procedures in terms of hipaa.
Excellent. So that is why I said put the FISMA thinking aside, right? And embrace a new thinking
Environment. Right.
Here we are not doing any categorization, control selection. No, it's nothing like that.
Sure.
Right?
Okay. All right.
Even though HIPAA has its own way, we'll learn about that today.
Okay.
About categorizing an application and systems. We call it system criticality and application criticality. So we'll learn about that. But it's not, there's nothing like categorize it. No, don't bring that. Don't think here. Right? Don't think about that here. Good. So just follow the current with this. So we have a physical safeguard, right? So the physical safeguard is the controlling of physical assets to protect against inappropriate access to protected data. Inappropriate access. So here we have 4 standards. Facility access control. Some literature call it physical access control, is the same thing. Workstation use. Workstation is where you have your computer and your monitors, right? How do you use your workstation? We'll learn about that. Then that workstation, what security measures have you put in place to prevent physical access to that area? Device and media control, another big thing. So we're going to go deep into that. So example could be computer servers in a locked rooms where you have your servers, right? The supercomputers, they should be in a locked room. Don't just let it be at a place that anybody can walk and see your servers or what have you. Data backup stored off-site. So if you have a data backup, don't store it at the primary site. Have an off-site, right? It shouldn't be at the same place. Employee badges, lock doors, doors lock, door locks, lock cabinet for records with PHI, screen savers or screen locks, fireproof storage for records with PHI. These are all examples of physical safeguards. So we'll go deep into that. Technical safeguards. Technical. So the controlling of access to computer systems and the protection of communication containing PHI transmitted electronically over a network. So whenever you hear technical, then that is where the cyber comes in, right? Something that is connected to the internet, something that is electronic, right? So the technical safeguards covers that area. We have 5 standards here. We have the access control. So some literature call it logical access control, right? When you hear logical access control, it has to do with connectivity to the internet or logging it into a network, lateral movement or whatever it is on the internet. That is logical, right? Access to that documentation. Audit control, integrity, personnel or entity authentication, then transmission security, right? So these are the 5 standards. We'll go deep into that. So this is just giving you a highlight. Examples are username and password. It's a logical access. Before you log into your computer, you require username and password. Security logs. Anytime you use a system, it should be able to generate logs, right? It keeps records, right? Access control, right? Firewalls. I think I explained the firewall some time ago. Then data encryption. We talked about encryption some few weeks ago, right? Making data or records unreadable to people that you don't want them to see. That is encryption by using ciphers. So HIPAA, these standards that we talked about, those standards that we are saying administrative has nine, physical has 4, and technical has 5, right? They also have implementation specifications. That is very, very important. That is a breakdown of each of the standards, right? First one is required. So when we're going through, you see that some of them I put around R, I put A. Required means that the specification must be implemented. As for this specification or as for this control or this safeguard, you must implement it, right? You have no 2 ways about that. Addressable was developed to provide covered entity additional flexibility with respect to compliance with the security standard. So the second one is addressable. So we have implementation requirement is required and addressable. Addressable means that doesn't mean that you shouldn't do it, right? It means that you should do it, but you are giving some form of flexibility, right? So addressable example can be that it said lock server room, right? HIPAA is not being strict that use only access card to enter server room so that it keep logs of people who go in and come out, right? HIPAA can say it says it is addressable. You can use ordinary lock to log the server room, but when people go in, let them log in their name on a paper. That is enough. That is addressable, right? So addressable give some kind of flexibility, but it must be implemented, but you have that flexibility to have an alternative measure to make sure that you meet the law, right? So some of the standards, you see that I put R or A there, it tells you when the R is there, it tells you that this is required. If the A is there, it means it's what? Addressable. You have some way, a leeway to look for an alternative control that will equally secure the system you're talking about or the data we're talking about. Yes, Kingsley. Kingsley, have the floor. You're on mute.
Yeah, just wanted to share something real quickly with the class because I deal with HIPAA. I'm a nurse. I work with one of the hospitals in the medical center, and they've configured our computers in such a way, our system in such a way that, let's say you are taking care of 5 patients, you have no right to, look at the chart on the computer of another patient. The computer will stop you right there and ask you, has this patient been assigned to you? Do you need him for anything? And then you have to put a password, authenticate before he lets you, touch, have access to that folder. And then there is a log. You can see everybody that has opened a particular folder, as that has accessed a particular folder. And then if you have no rights going to that folder, if it's not your patient, you get a query.
Come after you.
you will get a query. They have things set up like the computer won't even let you. You are going to put a special password in order to access a particular folder of a patient in another department. And when you put your password, they know it's you. They have a log trail. So that's one of the technical things we see, you know, on the job every day.
Very good. It's good you are linking it to your work, and that is exactly that what HIPAA requires. So we're going to go deep into that. We'll go deep into that. So we call it role-based access, right? So if you're a nurse, right, they assign you specific role. If you're a doctor, you assign a specific role. So you see what we call minimum necessary. Minimum necessary. So you just require the data that you need, the information that you need to perform your care. If you go beyond that, like Kingsley is saying, which is not assigned to you, there's going to be a query. And if it goes on like continuously, you'll be fired. And sometimes you can be prosecuted. That's the right word, prosecuted. Good. So let's continue. Thank you, Kingsley, for bringing that one up. We'll touch on that into details. So HIPAA breach notification rule, right? It requires covered entities, business associates, and their subcontractors. Now we've added another one, right? Initially, we said it's covered entities and business associates, but now we have added subcontractors. I'll explain that later on, right? To provide notification to Health and Human Services Secretary and to the media following a breach of unsecure PHI to affected individuals. If breach affects more than 500 residents of a state or a jurisdiction. So if a breach, when you talk about breach, means that people's PHI has been what? Exposed. People's PHI has been exposed. So it means that there is a breach. You couldn't keep it very well. You couldn't protect the PHI. So it has been exposed. So whenever it is exposed, either to the right people or to the wrong people, you need to report it to HHS, Health and Human Service. And Health and Human Service also require, they also require that you met, if it's about 500 residents, talk to the local newspaper or news agency for them to what? Publicize it that this is what has happened. The breach notification rule consists of protocols a business must undertake in the event of data compromise, right? So most of the times the breach notification and breach anything that has to be. I think I saw that's one of my certification that if there is a breach, who has the right to announce that it's a breach, right? Is it either is it security officer or HIPAA security officer or the HIPAA privacy officer? And the answer is privacy officer, the legal person. You, the security officer, you don't have the right to report, or security analyst, you don't have the right. Even if it's a breach within your organization, you have to keep mute. Newspapers reach out to you, don't talk to them. Direct them to the legal, right? Whenever the companies hear about breach, they try to call you and try to inquire. Customers will be calling to inquire. And some of you, I mean, some of us are our numbers and all other things are on the net. So people they go into a company, they Google, because the role you play, maybe your contacts will be there, they'll be calling you. You have no right to say, yes, it is a breach. No, tell them you can't talk. You direct them to legal. So whenever there is a breach, it's legal that communicate the breach to HHS and also to the media. Very good. So they follow a process to do those breach, to report the breach. So, and that include what constitute a breach, necessary parties to be notified, notification timeline, notification method, notification content, remediation plan. So when a breach happened on your environment, you have 72 hours to report to HHS, right? every covered entity or a business associate, when a breach happens, they have 72 hours to report to HHS, and that is handled by the Privacy Department. High-Tech Act. High-Tech Act. So the high-tech is a health information technology for economic and clinical health. Health information technology for economic and clinical health. So we call it high-tech. This was passed, the act was passed in 2009. And the act, what this act was to encourage all covered entities to move away from paper chat, right, to electronic. Remember, I mean, those of us that we are a little bit old. I'm not saying you are old. Some years ago, when you go to the clinic, it's okay, hold on. Then the record person will take a small card, your small card, you go with it. Then they go to the back office and they go and pull your file. I'm sure most of us, we have experienced that before, right? They go and pull your folder, they go and pull your file. Then they begin to write your reasons why you came, blah, blah, blah. Then you carry the same file to the doctor will open the file, they look at it, then begin to ask you questions, then everything they'll be writing. Those were the old school days. Bernard.
It's still current in Ghana, though.
Yeah, it's still current, exactly. So when you go to some communities, they are still doing that, right? But trust me, Ghana is changing, right? I've had a couple of friends that I talked to. In fact, I've had that experience. I went to a hospital, went to Ghana with my child. She was sick. We went to a hospital, and the doctor was doing everything online. We didn't have to carry a child. So it's changing gradually. So HIPAA, the High-Tech Act, right, was passed that, okay, now every covered entity, right, convert your paper into electronic, go electronic, right? Because they noticed that it was very hard for people to comply with the HIPAA Act, right? Because if you are still having paper record, I can move to the records room, open the folders, use my phone to take pictures of the records and go away. You won't see me. There's nothing to show that Alex was in this record room to take pictures of patient's record. So that's why they came out with the High-Tech Act, right? And they developed a program called Meaningful Use. So Meaningful Use was that the federal government were rewarding covered entities financially. They were giving them money, covered entities that made the effort to go electronic. So if you're able to go electronic, moving away from paper-based, right, you are being rewarded. They gave them incentives. They gave them grants to be able to acquire electronic health record system, EHR, or electronic medical records. So they were giving them that incentive. But those that they said, oh, no, we don't like electronic, they want to remain paper-based, they were penalized, right? So they gave them up to certain number of years. I think it ended, Meaningful Use ended not long ago, recently. I think in the 2020 or 2021, right? Because I used to work on some of the documentations then, and it was a huge money that the federal government was giving out, right? If they see that you make that effort, they give you that money. So that is why high-tech came in. So remember, high-tech came in because they want to, they encourage all covered entities to go electronic, right? To move away from paper-based to electronic health records. And those that comply, they were given incentives. Those that were very adamant, they don't want to change, they were penalized, right? Good, so that is high-tech for you. Then HIPAA final omnibus rule. HIPAA final omnibus. So it was passed in 2013. and became effective January 2013. It became effective March 2023. Sorry, March 2013. So the rule is intended to strengthen HIPAA privacy and security and High-Tech Act. And it's basically the main thing about the omnibus rule was that they noticed that records being shared with the business associate, I mean, if a covered entity share their record with a business associate, right, somebody is providing IT services with them. Those business associates were also sharing their record with their subcontractors. And initially, the law was not covering the subcontractors. So the omnibus rule said no. Now we notice that IntechLogic is doing business with Texas Children. So IntechLogic is a business associate to a Texas Children, right? And IntechLogic, because I'm doing that business with Texas Children, I don't have anywhere to keep all the data. I have subscribed to Amazon Cloud. So all the documents, the patient's record I'm getting from Texas Children Hospital, right? I have copies and I also keep copies at Amazon. So Amazon becomes a subcontractor. So the omnibus rule says that now HIPAA rule covers you, the covered entity, that is the Texas Children, the business associate, that is the IntechLogic, and the subcontractor, that is Amazon Web Service. Initially, it was between covered entity and business associate. But because the business associates are storing the data with their also subcontractor, they extended the law to them. So any engagement that a covered entity have with a business associate, they are supposed to sign what we call business associate agreement. We call it BAA, business associate agreement. And it is also required that the business associate, that is the IntechLogic, and my subcontractor Amazon, the two of us are supposed to also sign a business associate agreement. So in every engagement, take note of this, in HIPAA engagement, whenever you are performing HIPAA assessment, right, you work with a covered entity, that is, let's say a hospital or a clinic or a practice or insurance firm, and you are going to contract a third party to provide you services, right? Ask them, where do you keep your records? If they say we keep it private, we have a private data center, that is enough. So that is good. So in this case, you, the covered entity, and that business associate will sign the BAA. That is enough. But when the business associate tells you that, oh, we have subscribed to Microsoft Azure, we are subscribed to Google Cloud, we are subscribed to Amazon Cloud, then you go ahead and ask them, do you have a business associate with Amazon? Right? And the answer is expected to be yes. If they say no, then make sure the HIPAA rule. HIPAA is very strong on rules. The covered entity and their subcontractor have a business associate. And with these years of my experience in the health field, right, Amazon provide HIPAA environment and ordinary environment. The ordinary environment that they provide to their clients, it is a little bit cheaper, right? But where there is, they classify it as HIPAA environment, is expensive. So majority of the companies, everybody wants to beat down costs. They don't go for the HIPAA environment, but they go for the ordinary platform or ordinary environment. So if you don't sign for HIPAA environment, Amazon Web Service will not sign a BAA with the covered entity. This is a personal experience that I always share with my students, right? Amazon will not share sign BAA with you, right? So if you ask them, they say, oh, we store it on Amazon. Do you have a BAA? And they said no, then they should tell you that they are not using HIPAA environment on Amazon, which is well secured because of the stringency of the HIPAA law. Then you have to tell them, look, you need a BAA with Amazon. So they will go back and Amazon will say, tell them, you have not signed up for, HIPAA environment, so we can't sign with you. And that pushes them to go and use a HIPAA environment, pay more, and sign the BAA. And it gives you that assurance that wherever your data is stored on Amazon, it is secure, right? And I said BAA is Business Associate Agreement. I've mentioned that a couple of times. So Business Associate Agreement, that is an agreement that is signed between a covered entity and the contractor, right? Or the business associate, and also between the business associate and their subcontractors. Good. So in summary, right? In summary, this is what I want you to have it in mind, that whenever you talk about, I call this slide an interview slide. This is one of before the end of the class, I will give you some tips. There are some slides that when you're preparing, you're starting with the interviews, especially you're talking on phone, you need to print them and put it on the wall, right? When I was getting into this job, and my training was basically on HIPAA. I'm sorry, on FISMA. But later on, when I was doing my research, I got to know about HIPAA. So what I did was I did summary. I pasted it everywhere. We used to live in an apartment. Any corner you go, kitchen, you see it over there. You go to the bathroom, and I paste it directly. When I'm sitting on the toilet bowl, it's directly by my side, right? Where I brush my teeth, I put it over there. So our house was full of papers scattered, right? Because anytime I get opportunity, I just want to put my eye on something and get something else and take it away. So that's another trick that you can do to help you prepare for your interview. So this is another a good slide. So HIPAA security has three main safeguards: administrative, physical safeguard, and technical safeguards. Administrative, we have 9 standards. Physical, we have 4 standards. Then technical, we have 5 standards, right? This morning, I was listening to one, he's I don't know whether he's a motivational speaker or he's called Simon Sinek. I'm sure some of you might have you've been listening to him. I was listening to him on one of his interview, and he was talking about consistency, right? Consistency. Whatever you want to do, be consistent at it, right? So that is one thing. And I was like, it just came into mind. So wow, when I was starting IT, I was very consistent about my learning. Yesterday, I was talking to one guy. He's lucky. He has one of my students. He's lucky. He has job, and he's still looking for additional one, and he hasn't gotten. And he was complaining. I said, "You are lucky. You have the job, and you are looking for one. You haven't gotten it. You are complaining." And I asked him, "Have you been consistent like when you were starting?" He said, "Oh no, but now I know." I said, "No, you know it, but you haven't been like practicing and diligently doing your research, right, to better off what you know. To add to what you know. So consistency is good. So this is another part that you can print it. I'll teach you all these tips, right? I'll give you all these tips. Kingsley, quick one before we move on to the next one.
Yes, I have a quick question. I know that as a contingency plan, some companies make their backup in the cloud. Companies offering cloud services, they use those as their backup when disaster happens. Now, there's been concerns that cloud services, that they are plagued with security issues. So when it comes to HIPAA, okay, if a company dealing with the government, and they have cloud providers as their backup sites. How does hipaa look at that?
So hipaa also, if you are dealing with, I mean, hipaa is okay. Initially, there were concerns about cloud, but the research has shown that, I mean, there's highest security over there. But hipaa does not stop you from saving your backups on cloud, no, right? But hipaa tells you that make sure, right, wherever you're going to save it is secure, because if a breach happens, it's not on the cloud company, it is on you, right? So that is why we do what we call vendor security assessment. And the beauty of it is that it's part of the class that we're going to learn, right? You assess your vendors, you assess your business associates. You don't just get up and say, oh, I'm going to do business with Amazon. So Amazon is well known, so let me just start sharing data with them. No. So we are going to learn that. And that side is a hot cake. A lot of my students are having jobs over there. So we're going to learn that you assess those third parties and make sure they are well secured before you share your data with them.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So that is it for the first part. Any questions before we start the second part? We are now going to dive into each of the safeguards. Then we look at the standards into details. I'll explain them into details. Okay. Silence means consent, right? Okay, so let me move on to the next one. So let's start with the HIPAA security administrative safeguards, right? We say it has 9 standards under administrative safeguards, right? We have 9 standards: security management process, assigned security responsibility, workforce security, information access management, awareness and training, incident procedure, contingency plan, evaluation, business associate contracts. So let's take them one by one. So when we talk about security management process, by the way, those understanding controls that you have started working on, right? If you have started working on it, some of these terms are not going to be new to you at all. We are going to go through some of them. Those controls that I asked you to do Google search, or you can use your AI, whatever it is, to search, right? Just to read about them. Some of them are going to appear here. It's the same thing, the same controls that is here, but HIPAA put it in a different way. But if you understand what it means by risk analysis or risk assessment, is the same thing. Very good. So it requires an organization to implement policies and procedures to prevent, detect, contain, and correct security violations, right? So remember, administrative is about policies and procedures, So to prevent, detect, contain, and correct violations. So implementation specifications. So when you see R, it means what? What you see R, it means
Required.
It's required.
Required. Very good. Thank you. So risk analysis. It says conduct an accurate and thorough assessment of potential risk and vulnerabilities to the confidentiality, integrity, and availability of EPHI, electronic protected health information. Conduct risk analysis or risk assessment. HIPAA requires that as a covered entity, every year, at least once every year, perform risk assessment to identify that what are the possible risks associated to the EPHI that I'm collecting, right? I have a client in New York, I think I've talked about this before, right? That I did this assessment for. I just finished my reporting. They had a breach, so then there was a delay, and I just finished I'm supposed to have a final meeting with them next week, and I'll close out the assessment. I went on site and performed risk assessment for them, interview staff, interview people. And it is not that they want to do it. It's a requirement from hipaa. They have to do that. Risk management. Implement security measures sufficient to reduce risk and vulnerabilities to a reasonable and appropriate level. When you hear risk management, what comes into your mind? Yes, risk management. This one should be a quick one for me to move on. Risk management. Oh, this one shouldn't be a problem. Training day 3, we covered extensively about risk management. Should I continue without saying anything? Okay, let me continue. Silent means that you all got it, so I should continue, right? Be so quiet. So
let me give it a try, Alex.
Please do. Yeah, I like that.
So the risk management talks about the confidentiality, the integrity, and assessment, the CIA.
Availability.
You're talking about CIA.
Mm-hmm.
No, this is not risk management. Risk management program, training day 3. Don't look at your notes. What goes into risk management? If you want to manage a risk within an organization.
Yeah. We talked about you have to identify the assets and then also consider the threats, the vulnerabilities, and then once you know the assets and then the vulnerabilities, you know how to manage them.
That is some small part of it.
Okay.
I want to know risk management in general. MJ, you're on mute. Oh, we can't hear you, MJ. Check your microphone.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, but now it's very faint.
Okay. So I was talking about identifying and assessing and monitoring the risks.
Good. You talk about identification, assessment, but you missed one before monitoring. There's one. There are 4 of them.
Is it responding?
No. Responding. Right. Thank you. So whenever you hear risk management, please don't forget. Whenever you hear the word, even when you are sleeping, somebody talk about risk management, just wake up and say, oh, risk identification, risk assessment, risk response, and continuous monitoring. That is the basic thing that you should always know if you are into information security risk management, right? You should please don't forget about that. And I hammered that. When we got there, I was hammering. You can go and watch the video. And I said it. I remember I said it. I'll ask you along the way, right? And it's going to come again. So please remember, anytime you hear risk management. So hipaa requires that a covered entity must implement security measures, and that includes risk management. They should have a process for identifying risk. They should have a process for assessing the risk. They should have a process for responding to the risk. And they should have a process for continuously monitoring the risk. So when you go to most of the covered entity, they have security analysts that are continuously perform security assessment, continuously monitoring security assessment, right? So it's a very, very important thing within the covered entity. Good. Sanction policy, right? As the names sound, applied appropriate sanction against workforce members and business associates who fails to comply with security policies and procedure. If somebody goes against policy and procedure, Kingsley talked about going to watch patient that has not been assigned to you, right? You heard that a celebrity had come to the hospital, and out of your curiosity, you go and log into the system and go and check the record of that celebrity. Meanwhile, that person has not been assigned to you to work on. You're in trouble. That could be the end of you losing your license, right? So there need to be a process to apply sanction to people who do not comply with the law or the policies and procedure. Information system activity review, implement procedure to record of information system activity, such as audit logs, access report, security incident tracking report. Right, like Kinsley said, there is a system in place. Before you log on into a system, it requires you to enter your username and password. It requires you to enter your code. It's not only for authentication, but it's also for non-repudiation and keeping records on people who are having access to that particular record, right? So it's not that they just set the system like that or those systems are like that. No, HIPAA requires them that make sure that there is a procedure to record every information about people's activity on your computers, at the covered entity, at the clinics, at the hospital, right? Everything. So that is why when you are logging in to a system, those of you who have looked at the understanding control, we call it system notification or login banner, right? Means that warning, mostly when you're going to log into a corporate network, it comes to warning. Please know that everything that you are doing is under monitoring, right? And anything that you do can be used against you at the court of law. Blah, blah. They use it, they put that kind of notification over there, right? It's a requirement. So when you're working in a covered entity, right, you don't just do anything anyhow. If you are the type that is so curious, want to see about people's interfere in people's things, you find yourself in trouble because everything that you're doing, it is under monitoring. Somebody somewhere sits somewhere and see. And sometimes they forget, I mean, they've set the parameters. So when you go beyond the parameters, the system creates an alert to the system administrator. And if the system administrator tries to cover you, that system administrator, the system will not stop that. I mean, to give an alert about 2 or 3 times for something to be done. If nothing is done, it is escalated to the highest level. So nobody can cover you, can cover up for you, right? Good. Number 2, assign security responsibility. HIPAA requires that covered entities must have security people responsible for development and implementation of the policy, procedure, and having the overall responsibility for security of the organization, PHI. So that is why you and I, we are being hired. It is a requirement that if you're a covered entity, you must have a HIPAA officer, somebody who can, I mean, who is in charge of HIPAA and somebody whose work is to make sure that PHI is protected. So it is a requirement. Workforce security. It ensures that all members of its workforce have appropriate access to electronic protected health information and includes the following implementation specifications. The first one is authorization and supervision, right? So procedure for authorization and supervision of workforce members who work with EPHI or location where it must be assessed, right? There need to be some supervision. Some levels are there that you don't need, right? It's not assigned to you, but maybe you may need it to offer service. You need your supervisor to give you an approval. That process has to be there. Otherwise, some people will go and say, "So I needed it for to do my work." No, if it is beyond your area, right? If it's, we call it some, I mentioned it's minimum use, right? You are being given the data or the information that you need to take care of the patient, but maybe you need additional information. The system shouldn't allow you. Somebody has to authorize you before you get to that level. Workforce clearance procedure for to determine that access to workforce member to PHI is appropriate, right? If the workforce member is just a front desk executive taking calls and booking people, right? You need to make sure you have those demarcation. That's what we call role access, right? So if you are a front desk, you should have specific role that determines the type of PHI you should assess. If you are a doctor, you should have a specific role. You are a nurse, you are a cleaner, right? There has to be, so that people are authorized to see the right information based on their role. Termination procedure. Procedure for terminating access to EPHI when the employment of workforce member ends, or when the clearance procedure determines that a change in workers' access privilege is appropriate. So there need to be a procedure that says that if you are being terminated, we cut so and so access to a system. Shouldn't have access to A, B, shouldn't have access to B, right? Or sometimes you switch job. You used to be maybe a nurse, and now a nurse practitioner. You shouldn't be having the same access as a nurse and also the same access as a nurse practitioner. You need to be able to elevate their access and make sure that you get the right access, right? Good. Information access management. It requires an organization to implement policies and procedures for authorizing access to EPHI only when it's appropriate based on users' recipient role. I just talked about that. Only when, right, it is appropriate for your role. If it's not by, you don't need it for your work, you should never. The system should be set in such a way that you will never have access to the system. First one is isolation of healthcare clearinghouse function. This, we don't do that, right? We don't do, it's not, our clearinghouse is not part of the security, our work that we do. So the isolation, we don't do that. Then B, access authorization. I think Kingsley put it in the right explanation. Access authorization. If I need access to work on 5 patients, the system should require me to enter my username and password. Means that you are being authorized to see these 5 patients, and it should be restricted to that. You see only their record, nothing else. There needs to be a process to do that, right? It can be a password, or it can be somebody sitting somewhere and granting you access that is addressable. There's a flexibility in that. Access establishment and modification. Before your access is given to have us to access PHI, right? There need to be a process. I cannot just get up that because I've been employed within the clinic, I should have access to PHI. No. My supervisor should be able to request for that access for me. Then state my role. Then whoever is managing the system will be able to place me at the right place. And also when maybe I started as a nurse practitioner, then I went to school and I've become a medical doctor, right? They need to modify my access. It shouldn't be that I should have nurse practitioner and at the same time a doctor's access. No, there has to be modification. So general guideline for access management, restrict access right to the minimum necessary. Minimum. Give them, the nurses and the doctors, only the information that they need to take care of the patient. That is how your system should be. Define types of users, roles, and access labels, right? This is a nurse. This is your access label. This is a doctor. This is your access label. You can have access to social security number, medical record, right? Medical information. It has to be stated, right? If you are just an ordinary user, maybe you can log in into the system. You can see the name of the patient and see a date that they came for care. That's it. Maybe for medical billing. That's it, right? So there need to be some users' roles and their labels. Verified identity of who attempt to access information. If somebody has to access information, their identity must be verified, right? And Kingsley said, you require username and password so that you know that you are the right person accessing it. Establish criteria for when access rights should be changed, right? What criteria have you put in place that at this point in time, or when we see these triggers, we see this behavior, your access right is going to be revoked, or we're going to change it? Never allow access right to be transferred among users. It's never done. There was this record, there was this some report that a nurse called. They said, I can't use this user, I can't go into this, I've forgotten the password. We asked the nurse, how come? It's something that you've been using. Why don't you reset your password? Then she said, no, it doesn't belong to me. It's this doctor. So he gave it to me to log in and to work on his behalf. It's a no-go area. No-go area. That you, the doctor, you have given your access, your username and password to a particular nurse to be doing something on your behalf. No, it's never allowed within the HIPAA environment, right? So we escalated that, and the nurse and the doctor got punished by that, right? This is never allowed. Communicate policies to every person that has access to EPHI. They must know the policy. If you are having access to PHI, you should know the policy. Then review policies and procedures annually, right? HIPAA requires that policies and procedures must be reviewed every year. So security awareness and training, that is standard 2. It requires an organization to train all members of their workforce on its security policies and procedures, right? The covered entity, your staff, people must be trained. You need to send security reminders. So those of us who are working in the hospital environment, that's why once in a while you see some security reminders. If you see something, say something. If you see a link you don't know, don't click on it, right? Report it as a phishing button. It's something that you need to keep people on alert, always educating them, right? Then sometimes you do simulations. You send a phishing, like there's this platform that we use called Know Before, right? It helps you to send a simulated phishing attack to see whether people will click on it or people will report. These are all very, very important, just to help people to be on alert. Protection from malicious software. You need to put measures in place. Educate people to know about malicious software, not to be downloading, or even you shouldn't give them the right to download and install software that has not been well vetted or that you haven't done security assessment on. But you educate people that, look, there are malicious software out there. Be very careful. It's not everything that you should download. Log and monitoring. Log in and monitoring. Let them know that, look, when you log into our system, we monitor you. They should know. It shouldn't be like you don't tell them, then when they do so, oh, I got you. No, it's not like that. HIPAA says train them. Let them be aware that, hey, everything that you do, we monitor you. So do the right thing. So when they go against it, that means that, okay, they intentionally went against it. Password management. You teach people how to manage their passwords, right? And in the walkthrough, when you're doing HIPAA walkthrough, right, sometimes you need to look under people's desk. People write password on sticky notes. They put it under the desk, right? Sometimes they put it under the laptop. And you see it every day. But teach people how to manage password, right? They don't need to write passwords on their phones and save them in the notes. I'm sure some of us are still doing it, right? Teach people how to manage passwords. So reminders could be an internal memo or postings on company bulletin board or the company's intranet. Send reminders, security awareness and training. Let people constantly be aware of security issues pertaining PHI. Security incident procedures. It requires an organization to implement policies and procedures to address security incidents, the attempted or successful unauthorized access, use, disclosure, modification, destruction of information systems. There need to be policy about that. Implementation specification, response and reporting. Response and reporting is very, very important. Develop policies and procedures to identify and respond to suspected known security incidents, right? There need to be policies and procedures. HIPAA is very strong on policies and procedure. Mitigate to the extent practical harmful effects of the security incidents that are known to the organization. Whenever you see an incident, don't brush it under the carpet. Oh, this is not anything. This is not anything. No. Whenever an incident occurs, make sure it is mitigated, right? You take efforts to resolve it. Don't brush it under the carpet, right? Document security incidents and their outcomes. Any incident that happens, don't take it lightly. There needs to be a documentation on it, right? You document it. And when the incident happened, what was the outcome? Document it. It's very, very important to HIPAA. Contingency plan. It requires organization to implement policies and procedures for reporting, responding to emergency or other occurrences like fire, vandalism, system failure, natural disasters, that damages systems that contain EPHI. Contingency planning, another name is what? Plan B. Right? What plan B have you taken? That if an incident happened that can damage your system, you will not be able to provide services. But I mean, the incident can cause you not to be able to provide services. But if you have a plan B, you continue to what? Provide services to your clients. So the first one is data backup, right? We'll learn about data backup, right? Data backup, making sure that you have an alternative site that you are backing up your data. It can be full backup, incremental, or differential. We'll learn about that into details. Disaster recovery. What disaster recovery plan have you got in place? If a disaster happens, how are you going to cover? Business continuity plan. So most of the time, disaster recovery goes with the business continuity plan. If a disaster happens, how are you going to recover? In the midst of that disaster, can you still continue to provide business to your clients? Right? There need to be a plan like that. Emergency mode operation plan. So sometimes an emergency happens and your systems are down. Do you say that our systems are down? So you cross your hand, the nurse cross their leg and they be sleeping. No. There need to be a plan that maybe, okay, if the system goes down, we can use paper to continue to provide what? Services to our client. Testing and revision procedure. At a point in time, you need to test your systems, right? To see whether they are working. Sometimes you need to do disaster contingency plan testing. Okay, this is a EHR that is providing the electronic health record, managing the electronic health record. What about is at a point in time, the EHR become outage or it goes off? Will my different server be able to pick it up so that it continues to run without me having some kind of problems, right? You need to test it. Application and data criticality analysis. Somebody asked, that was Betty, that do we do categorization and other things? So healthcare environment, they don't do categorization, control selection, but they also have another form, right? Area or plan that they do. We call it application and data criticality analysis, right? So what you do is that you identify all all the applications that you use within the healthcare environment. You list them. Okay, I use electronic health records. I use a payroll system. I use a record keeping management system. I use a training platform. You list everything. Then when you list, you come and ask yourself, okay, with all these applications that we are using at the covered entity, right? If something happened and I want to rescue them, I want to make sure that I continue to maintain the business and continue to provide services. Which of them will be my number one priority? Then you start taking them. It's more like a business impact analysis. You take the, okay, the EHR is my first point in contact. The one with the employees record about their pay will be the second one. Platform for training can be the third one. So it means that you put them into tiers. Tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. So anytime a disaster or something happens within the organization, your first effort is going to go for tier 1 applications, right? Or data criticality, they do the same thing. If it's a covered entity, PHI will be their number one, maybe followed by employees, payment, maybe their salary information, right? So that is how it is. So they put the systems and data into categories, tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3. Tier 1s are the ones that they will go for all the time. Make sure that those tier 1s are recovered whenever there is a problem, followed by the tier 2, then the tier 3. So that is how data is being classified within the covered entity or the healthcare environment. Evaluation. So organization must perform security periodic technical and non-technical evaluation that determines the extent to which the organization meets the ongoing requirement of security rule. So HIPAA says that, look, at a point in time, you just have to put on a break. Okay, let's wait a minute. Then ask yourself, are we really adhering to HIPAA security rule? Are we really following the rule? Is everything okay? Right? There was this short video that I saw on I think on YouTube. It's quite interesting. A small girl about 8 and about 8 years or 8 years. I think the dad is a Nigerian. He's in America here, and the girl said, when my dad asked me, "Are you okay?" He said, then I get, it means that my dad is concerned about my welfare. Am I like he's worried about me? But he said, when the dad put on the Nigerian tone and say, "Are you okay?" It means that I'm in trouble. A small girl, 8 years, and she's been able to see her dad in that way. He said, "Are you okay?" Then means that no, I'm in trouble. I have to sit up right. I have to do things right. So the same thing, HIPAA says, like, at a point in time, you put on a break. Am I really following the HIPAA security rule? Do I have the policies and procedures in place? Have they been well developed? Have I trained my employees? Are people having the right access? Right? Is my contingency plan in place? Is it working very well? Right? Are my computer systems and the network been designed to work as HIPAA required? Put on a break. That's what HIPAA says, right? And most of the times, it requires, this is supposed to be done every 6 months, right? So if you work as a HIPAA security officer, you put on a break and evaluate your HIPAA processes to see whether you are in line with HIPAA. So that is what evaluation is about, and it is a required one. Then business associates. The organization must develop and implement contracts that ensure that the vendor and subcontractors that create, receive, maintain, or transmit EPHI on the organization's behalf will appropriately safeguard the information. That is all the business associate agreement does. That is a written contract or other arrangement. They need to be a written contract. That's what we probably call as business associate agreement, right? All that is saying that, look, I'm going to share my patient's record with you. This is how I protect my data, my patient's data. So now that I share with you, can you also give me pointers, rules, how you're going to protect that data? Then we all come on the same page that, okay, since this is a very important data and HIPAA requires that we protect it, we are all signing this document to show that we are committed to protecting patients' data. That's it. Right? Yes, Fenton. Go ahead. You are on mute.
Yeah, my question is, are the marks a business associate or are they covered entities?
You mean, are they a must? Is it a must?
Medical administrative contractors, the marks. Are they business? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. As long
Yeah,
as they are providing an IT service or any services to your covered entity, and they will be having access to PHI.
Right.
Right. This reminds me to one of the questions. I remember the New York University job interview. Right. The guy asked me, so what triggers BA to be signed? And honestly, I had learned HIPAA. HIPAA, I know it inside out. Then I said, it depends on the engagement. If the engagement contains PHI, then definitely you must sign BA. If there's no PHI, then HIPAA doesn't cover that. And the guy said, you are the right person I've been waiting for, right? You truly understand HIPAA. So if the engagement with the covered entity will include IT services or any services that they will be touching patient record, then there need to be a business associate agreement.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. But if they are providing services to the organization and they are not going to have any access to PHI, there's no need to sign a contract. But some companies sign just to be on the safer side, right? Good.
Okay.
So those are the nine administrative. The next one is physical safeguards. Physical safeguards. So here we have physical access control or the facility access control. They are the same. Workstation use, workstation security, device and media control. Now let's look at facility access control or physical access control. They are used interchangeably. It requires an organization to limit physical access to its facility while ensuring that authorized access is allowed, right? I cannot just get up and go to my neighbor's house and start entering it. I mean, just go to the house unless she invites me or she opens the door for me. That is a physical access control. Only the people that you authorize should come to the facility, especially where there is PHI. A visitor cannot just walk into the facility and go to the doctor's room, go to where the chart is. No. Physical access requires that. Contingency operation, policy and procedure to limit physical access to its electronic information system and the facility or facilities in which they are hosted, while ensuring proper authorization is allowed. So when there is a contingency operation, maybe something happened, you need to get access to PHI to provide services, right? You still have to follow protocol. Don't say that because it's an emergency, I can just walk in and start picking papers. No. HIPAA says follow protocols. Facility security plan. Policies and procedure to safeguard the facility and the equipment therein from unauthorized physical access, tampering, and theft. What is the security plan? You need to demarcate your facility, right, into security zones, visitor zone, staff zone, right? So there are some places, right, you don't allow all visitors to go there. Or you don't allow some places out there, you don't even allow staff to go there. If they don't have the right to go there, maybe a server room. If the staff is a nurse, what is the nurse going to do in a server room? Are they going for a sightseeing? Right? So there need to be a plan where it's demarcated that this place visitor can go, this place staff can go, this place only security teams can go. HIPAA requires that. Access control and validation procedure. Policies and procedure to validate a person's physical access to facilities based on their role or function, including visitors control and control of access to software programs for testing and revision. I had an encounter with this and I've never forgotten about this. My first job with Verizon, it was a HIPAA job. So we went to work for a county hospital. Those of you in California, it's called Riverside County. They had a breach. And if you get a breach, as part of the breach, HIPAA requires that you have to do security assessment on your environment. So they selected, in fact, this is a mistake, supposed to be number 2. I'll make a correction. So if you can correct that, it's number 2. So in the interview, the boss who was leading us asked me, what are some of the physical security things that you have done? I said, oh, observations. I said, I've done observation. And the observation, what I did was I studied first, I reviewed the company's policies and procedure about physical security. And per physical security, they need to control, physical access control, right? There need to be some validation procedure. And per their policy, whenever a visitor comes in, the visitor has to log in, they check their ID, and escort them to the appropriate office. But in my observation that I was doing, I noticed anytime visitor comes, they just direct the person, okay, go here, go here, go here. And that was a breach. And the man said, you are the right person we'll be waiting for. And then I could hear the recruiter was so happy, like they were so happy. And I was very happy. That was my first job, right? You validate. And it was, I created that story. I hadn't done that work before. You need to be smart. I created that story because I've read about validation and I tied it to those control. And that is what they want to hear. And that is what we do on the job, right? Good. So the next one, maintenance record. Policies and procedure to document repairs, modification to physical compound of the facility, which are related to security. Example, maintenance to hardware, doors, locks, and walls. This is security issue. If you come and do maintenance on the door, you change the locks, there need to be record on that. That this is the door, the lock that was there, the door number is ABC. I change it and put XYZ there. These are the keys. They matches with the law that has been the key that has been replaced, and it came with 2 keys, right? And that is the exact keys we are keeping. We haven't done any duplicates. So HIPAA is very, very strict on that, so that anytime there is a maintenance or there's a change, you have a record. And the key thing is that nobody can circumvent that control. Because you change the lock, you keep a copy of the key in your pocket. When nobody is there, you come there and you go in and you go away with protected health data, right? There need to be maintenance record. Maybe somebody just called you. I'm calling from AT&T. I've been called to come and do services on your network or your server, right? HIPAA requires that when they come, they should log in. You keep records on them, right? Somebody should even escort them to the closet. You should ask them, who called you? What's the name of the person I'm going to work with? As a front desk executive, they're supposed to call that person. Then that person will walk them to the closet where they are going to do the maintenance. Stay with them until the maintenance is done, then escort them out. So if you're in a covered entity and you see people coming in, doing whatever they do and they go out, they are in violation of HIPAA. And if HIPAA should come after them, they will be in trouble. Good. I think this is supposed to be number 3. Oh, no. Is it this? Oh, okay. I think it's correct. Number 1. Good. Number 2, workstation use. Workstation use is number 2. A workstation is any electronic computer device such as laptop, desktop, or other device that performs similar job, right? Your phone can be a workstation, right? Sometimes you go to a phone company, they don't even take you to the front desk. Just they meet you, they have an iPad and they start doing some things there. That is a workstation right there for you. It's the same thing in the covered entity, right? If you are a doctor working from patient to patient with a medical device or iPad, that is your workstation, right? Good. So the organization must develop policies that specify proper function to be performed. So at your workstation, where the doctor, the nurse, they sit to work, they need to be a proper functions, right? The way those functions are to be performed. How do you perform? You don't watch videos on your workstation. You don't do anything that is contrary to HIPAA, right? Physical attributes of the surroundings of a specific workstation or class of workstation that can assess PHI. What is the physical attribute? Their workstation, how is it? Right, the way the place environment is, anybody who walks in can see everything that they are doing or can see their screen. Is very, very important to HIPAA. So in this HIPAA, right, most of the time, HIPAA physical security controls, it is done through what we call walkthroughs. Please take note of that. In an interview, they can ask you, what do you do for the physical security aspect of the HIPAA? We do walkthroughs. So the walkthroughs is that you take a walk, we do observation, you go to the clinics or you go to the covered entity, you look at the desk, the workstation where the nurses mostly sit or the front desk executive sits, right? It's supposed to be done in such a way that when the patient is standing behind the wall or behind the desk, they shouldn't be able to see everything that the one behind the desk, the one who is sitting in front of the computer is doing. They shouldn't be able to see the patient record, right? So you observe all those things. Printers, where have they positioned the printers? Are the printers on top of the desk such that anybody who is working can just pick a print and walk away? Or the printers are on the corridor, that whenever they issue the command, it's prints by itself, that you can go and grab something. We observe all those things. Have doctors left their tablets on the desk, or they have locked them in a specific place, which observe all those things, right? So the standard, this is standard, right? It encompasses portable devices like tablet, PDAs. I'm sure PDAs are fading out. Laptops, desktop. Example of workstation use standards are: log off your computer before leaving your workstation, right? When a doctor or a nurse come to see a patient and you are in that consulting room, when they are walking away, they should be able to log off their PC. Even when they are stepping for just a second or a minute, they need to log off. When they come in, they should log in, right? It's very, very important. Then continually updating antivirus software, right? Workstation security. right? As you use the workstation, there need to be also some security measures taken. This may be accomplished by positioning monitors so that they cannot be viewed by passers-by, right? The person who is working or somebody, sometimes they just come and lean on the decks as if they are talking with you. You may never know the type of glasses they are wearing. Some people are smart, those hackers. They may be wearing some recording glasses. They lean and as if they are talking to you, not knowing they are looking at the screen behind you and trying to record everything, right? It's very, very important. Good. Using password protected screensavers. Your screen must be a screensaver. When you walk away and you log off, when you come, it should be able to require you to log in again. Limiting access to the building, offices, workstation, printers, fax machines, remote devices is very, very important. Fax machines, especially, right? Fax machines, you don't need to approve it before it prints, right? As soon as the fax comes, it prints. So if it is not in a secure room and somebody goes to that particular room, they will pick it up, right, and go away with the information. So fact, make sure those ones are kept in a secure room. So they are part of workstation security. Device and media control. It requires an organization to implement policies and procedures that control the receipts and removal of hardware and electronic media that contain EPHI. So it's very, very important. We often receive hardware, new computers, new how do you call it? Hard disk and all those kind of things that may be containing electronic PHI. So you need to know how to manage them. First one is disposal. hipaa is very strong on this, right? As part of your hipaa assessment, you may do what you call dumpster diving. Dumpster diving. You have to go to where they put their dumps or their trash and try to see whether the papers that they throw away, some of them may contain PHI, right? And also sometimes the devices, right? The hardware, if they are no longer effective, how do they dispose it of? So majority of the companies, they use what we call shredding company. So they come, they shred those devices, they destroy it. In my interview with this Riverside that we did for Verizon, they told us that what they do is that whenever there is a hard drive is no more use, is destroyed, that it may contain PHI, they use hammer, right? A sledgehammer to crush them. Sometimes they create holes on them, they crush them before they give it to those shredding companies. Media reuse. If they have to reuse a hard drive or any part of the media or the device or the computer, what processes do they do? Do they follow a procedure, right? A policy and procedure just to make sure that as you are using a media like a hard drive that was on one computer and you're putting it in another computer, right? You wipe all the PHI, you wipe all the confidential data, right? So that when you put in another computer, the people who are going to access it will not have access to that PHI. It's very, very important. Accountability. You must keep record. hipaa requires that there must be records on movement of hardware. You move one hardware from one building to another building. Make sure that there's a record on that. That is where most of the breaches are happening. People walk to a covered entity, they see a laptop, they bolt away, right? You're not able to know that this laptop belongs to company or somebody's personal laptop, right? So even it requires that when it comes to accountability, it requires that only maybe people who are in charge of hardware should move hardware. It's not anybody. You can't just go and carry laptop and work it within the healthcare environment unless you are responsible to work on that. Then backup. It also requires that anytime you want to move a device from one place to another place, make exact copies of the PHI that is on it. Maybe you are taking it to another city. Make sure you keep exact copies, because as you go, you may never know what will happen on the way, right? Good. The last one, and we are done for today, is technical safeguards. Technical safeguards. So here we have 5 standards: logical access control, audit control, integrity, person and entity authentication, and transmission security. So let's see. Logical access control, it requires an organization to implement technical policies and procedure that allow only authorized persons or software programs to access ePHI. Authorized persons or software programs, right? Good. First one is people use unique user identification. Assign a unique name or number for identifying and tracking user identity. So every person, every staff, every workforce, when in hipaa, whenever we're talking about staff, we call them workforce. hipaa use the term workforce. Every workforce must have a unique username and password, or unique user identification. Emergency procedure, access procedure, establish and implement procedure for obtaining necessary PHI during emergency. So if an emergency happens and you need to access the system, right, to be able to get PHI information on a patient, there need to be a procedure. You can't just say that because it's emergency, you have to access it, right? Unless that emergency, I think they call it emergency activation or something like that is activated, then probably you can do that and be justified for doing that. But there need to be a procedure on that. Automatic log off. Implement electronic procedure that terminates an electronic session after a predetermined of inactivity. Some people, they walk away from their PC and they don't lock it. But hipaa says that even if they do that, set your system in such a way that maybe within 15 minutes, within 10 minutes, the system will lock them off, depending on the sensitivity of the system and the data they are working on. You should be able to lock them off. Encryption and decryption. Implement a mechanism to encrypt and decrypt ePHI. It's very, very important, right? What mechanism that we already have in place to encrypt ePHI and also decrypt them whenever you need them. So it's part of logical access control. Now, audit control. It requires an organization to implement hardware, software, and procedural mechanism that records and examine activity in the information system that contain or use ePHI. Right, that's what we're talking about. Anytime you use a system, it keeps records about you. There need to be some technical measures in place that it triggers by itself. Anytime somebody logs in, that technical measure starts working and start keeping those records. The organization should create a process to monitor access that includes review of audit logs, right? The logs that is being collected, right? You check why did the login fails. Maybe somebody was trying to log on into the computer. Either the person has forgotten their password, they log in, they log in several times and it locks them out. You should be concerned about that, right? So logs or failed logon attempt or security incidents. the frequency of such reviews and desired escalation processes, right? And there's somebody being paid, the dedicated person being paid who sit behind the computer all the time, and they are monitoring this traffic. And anytime the thing, maybe somebody assess something that is out of ordinary, they have an escalation process that they need to initiate for an action to be taken. So it's part of the audit. Integrity. It requires an organization to implement security measures to ensure that EPHR is not improperly modified without detection, right? So here, all it means that if somebody goes to the lab and perform, let's say, COVID, and the result came out negative, right? That result should maintain its integrity within the life cycle of that record. There shouldn't be a way that somebody can go into the system and change that negative to become positive, right? It should be able to maintain that integrity. So implementation specification said mechanisms to authenticate EPHI, policies, procedures, and mechanisms to protect EPHI from improper alteration and distraction. So you may never know, the person may want to go in with ulterior motive. I want to go and destroy this medical record. There should be a proper authentication, right? Who has a right to modify EPHI or who has a right to delete EPHI. As long as it's within the system, it should maintain its integrity. Nobody should be able to change it without proper authorization. Most operating systems mostly comes with the integrity check. So that is why when you enter certain things in the PC, right, it is difficult in terms of the logs. The logs it starts picking the logs, right? You can't go and change them. So the standard is mostly about data integrity, keeping the data it's in original form where nobody can alter it. Person or entity authentication. The organization must implement procedure to verify the person or entity seeking access to EPHI is the one claimed, right? There need to be a process. I think Kingsley said it, right? If you're going to access a EPHI, they need to authenticate you. Are you truly Kingsley that has been assigned to this patient? Then if you are the right person, you enter your username and password, then it should be able to give you access to the EPHI. Other than that, the system should be able to cut you off. It shouldn't give you that right? So example, password that the user must enter to log into a system. Sometimes it requires, depending on the company, they may require some biometric ID, right? Sometimes some digital signature. Then sometimes a token is generated, right? Use a physical device for a user ID, something like that. You generate a token, it comes into your phone, then you enter those ID on the system and you're authenticated. Now you can see your patient's record and work with them. The last one is transmission security. It requires an organization to implement technical security measures to guard against an unauthorized access to EPHI that is being transmitted over an electronic communication network. So EPHI is being transferred here and there, back and forth. You go to the clinic, they send your record to the pharmacy to go and pick up your medicine or your medication. That is being transmitted. So HIPAA says that, look, if you are moving patient's record from the covered entity to a pharmacy center, it has to go through an encrypted tunnel. It has to go through a secure tunnel so that nobody can intercept that record. So here, one, we have integrity controls, implement security measures to ensure that electronic transmitted EPHI cannot be easily be intercepted or interpreted by anyone other than the intended recipient. Nobody can intercept it. Then also encryption, implement a mechanisms to encrypt EPHI whenever appropriate. It's very, very important, right? Make sure that EPHI are protected whenever that is appropriate, right? It's very, very important, encryption. So the summary is here again. Make sure these are the highlights. You are very familiar with it, right? 3 main standards: administrative, physical, and technical. Administrative safeguards, we have 9 standards. We have 9 standards. Security management process, assigned security responsibility, workforce security, information access management, security awareness and training, security incident procedures, contingency plan, evaluation, security business associate contract. Those are the 9 standards. Physical safeguards, 4 standards: facility access control, workstation use, workstation security, device and media control. Then the next one is technical safeguards. It has 5 standards: access control, that is a logical access control, integrity control, audit control, integrity, person or entity authentication, and transmission security. So HIPAA security, that is it for today. The next move we're going to do is, now we've learned about all the safeguards. We've learned about the standards. We've learned about the requirements, implementation requirement. How do you perform this HIPAA security assessment within the healthcare environment? How is it done? You're working as a security analyst. What should you do? Right? You have been employed as a HIPAA security officer. What should you do? How do you perform the security assessment? Based on what we call OCR. In the beginning, I talked about OCR, right? Office for Civil Rights. If there's a breach, Betty, I'll come to you briefly. If there's a breach, you need to report it to HHS, right? HHS also has a unit called OCR, Office for Civil Rights. That Office of Civil Rights, every year, they come out with a list. They pick hospitals or covered entities at random, and they audit them for HIPAA, right? So, and if you are a security officer, you're working with a covered entity, some things that you need to do, make sure that you're in compliance with HIPAA, that has to be done. That is what we're going to learn. So we'll learn on that coming Wednesday. We're going to do the practical side of it. Yes, Betty.
Yeah, but Alex, I think my answer is going to be in next topic for on Wednesday.
Okay.
But my question is, if you get a job as a HIPAA analyst, are you gonna like work in a team? Definitely, there's gonna be orientation for you. You are not just going to be there and you'll be thrown out, into the job where you get yourself stranded. You don't know what to do. So definitely, there's gonna be an orientation for you. But are you going to work in a team or are you going to be solely like work by yourself?
Betty, I see some kind of panic in your right. Never be panicked. Even if you're going to work alone, trust me, with this information you are getting,
Right.
right, you are like on top.
Okay.
You're on top, but definitely you work in a team.
Okay.
You work in a team.
Okay.
But one thing that I encourage my student, or I train my student to be, is to be not to be dependent on team.
Right.
Right. But the area that you are going to be the one in charge, you'll be a master of that area. And so far, I mean, my students will tell you they are master in the area that they are doing. They don't depend on, so okay, when I go there, they are going to train me. No, if you go there and they are going to train you, it's bonus. That one, you clap for yourself. You got it.
Okay.
But if you go there, I've had students, they get job. The first week, they are being given assignment to do. And they get it straightforward. And I've had students, they start working and people start giving their commendation that, look, you've been here for 3 days. What you have done is even more than somebody who has been here for 3 years.
Okay.
Right?
That's good.
Because you are getting quality information. And also,
right.
I'm here to guide you. I'm here to guide you. Right? And you are there to, I'm here to help you succeed. You are not just going there to taste the 6 figures and say, okay, Betty came and thank you, bye-bye. No, it's not like that. I'm here to help you to stay.
Right.
Right? To stay.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Brother.
You're welcome.
Okay.
So there's one thing that I also want to share with you, right? And probably I will give an assignment on that as we prepare for the practicals on Wednesday. So NIST, remember NIST, National Institute of Standard Technology, that we talked about in the first month. They also provided a publication to guide covered entities to perform hipaa assessment. So then that publication is NIST 66. NIST 800-66 Ref 2. So let's open that. And it's called implementing the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Security Rule, a cyber security resource guide. Let me put them in the chat. It's a very good document. I mean, those of you who want to work, I mean, use a hipaa, this is a very good guide for you. So go to local download. Good. So this is the document. Let me make it a little bit bigger. Good. Okay. So this is a very good document, right? You can take a look at it, right? All that we've covered today is in here. It's in here. But here they even number it. So I don't know why they did a numbering by the side, but I think for easy review, right? So I don't expect you to read all. It's about 152 pages, right? It talks about the covered entity, the healthcare plan, the healthcare clearinghouse, business associates. Talks about them. But there's a place that I want you to, so it talk about resource or some information, a whole lot. But there's a place that I want you to take a look, right? Yes, it's at this place. It said consideration when implementing hipaa security rule. So let me click on that. So we have some key information here. That is fine. But this is where I want you to take a look at. It is the, is there an appendix? No, okay. So that is from page 26 going. That is where I want you to take a look at, right? So when you come here, it said identify all EPHI and relevant information system. Those are the key, it's a key activity. So if, let's say you get a job, okay, then they want you to, somebody says your right hand side. I don't get it. Okay, the local download. Okay, somebody was asking for it. Good. And they said, oh, okay, we need to perform, we need to prepare the organization for hipaa, right? You don't have a problem. How to prepare the company or the questions to answer or whatever it is, they are all here. It says sample questions to be able to meet this requirement. It gives a procedure, right? And gives sample questions. So you get a job and it's, oh, we want somebody who can perform hipaa security assessment, who can help us develop a hipaa security program. The questions are here, right? Has all EPHI generated, stored, processed, and transmitted within the organization been identified, right? Are all hardware and software for which the organization is responsible periodically invented? Have you kept records of all your hardware and software? Is the hardware and software inventory update on a regular basis? Have hardware and software that maintains or transmits EPHI been identified? Has it been invented? Right? Is the current configuration of organization systems documented, included in a connection or other system? So if they ask you, say, we need somebody who can develop a hipaa security program for us, do some kind of assessment, the questions are here to be a guide. So you can see, are there any prior risk assessment? So for your assignment, right, from today, so we meet on Wednesday, I would encourage you to go over all these questions because it's going to be very, very influential. These questions are going to be influential on us, on our practical work, right? And it can, if you're not able to go through, right, just about 2 or 3 that you can pick is good. Just be familiar, I mean, I don't expect you to know everything. But at least just go through it and it will give you that knowledge about how to frame your questions or what type of questions to look for when you are performing security assessment as a hipaa security analyst, right? So all the questions are here. It's a very good guide. And I used them when I was doing my consultancy for this hospital in New York, right? I used them. This is a very good document. So take note of that. NIST 800-66 Rev 2 is about NIST publication, right? Good. So I just wanted to throw this in as an assignment. You try to review it ahead of time and have some information about that. Good. Any questions before we end for today? Any questions? Good. So it seems like, is there a question?
Hi, Alex.
John?
Yeah.
Yeah, John.
I just want to say today's class is a little bit involving, a lot of information to consume. So we'll do our best to run through everything. Hopefully Wednesday we'll be ready for the practical test.
Exactly. So today's is to help you get the overview so that when we are doing the practicals, right? And I ask you, HIPAA requires that you should do security assessment, right? Kingsley, there's noise at the background. You mute yourself for now. So, and I ask you that for the practicals, just look at this area. That's what I'm trying to give you. If you can get ahead of time, I just want to touch on one thing. Conduct risk assessment, right? And HIPAA says conduct accurate, blah, blah, blah. So when he said, when we are doing the practicals, and then HIPAA says conduct risk assessment, what should you be looking for? It says, are there any prior risk assessment, audit comment, security requirement, and or security test result, right? So this is going to give you that foundation that when I'll share the protocol with you ahead of time when I'm sending you the invite for the next class, right? So that you see what we are going to ask, what goes into, what you should look for, right? And so if you're able to go through this and understand or have knowledge about what we have done for today, right, then it is that it becomes easy for you to follow or perform an assessment, right? So today is a lot of explanation and a lot of scenario, but that's the practical will help you to be able to see the picture very well. But you also have a part to play. Try to see if you can go through a little bit of this. Yeah, Kingsley, you have the floor now. Kingsley, you're on mute.
Okay, I said mine is really not a question. It's really kind of an observation. When we started this class, you talked about HIPAA security and HIPAA privacy.
Yes.
I'm finding that their activities overlap a lot. Okay. For instance, in the facilities we work, the state of Texas does auditing every year. But they do more of clinical things. They want to know if patients are being taken care of, if they are being abused, if we are giving them bad medication, making errors and killing everybody off. But aside from that, they deal a lot of their questions focus on HIPAA. Also, they want to see where our bins are, where we are putting all those patient papers that contain names of drugs they are taking. They want to see that shredder bin, and so I'm like, there's a thin line between what they do. I mean, it's clinical, but when it comes to HIPAA, there's a thin line between what they do and what security, HIPAA security folks, the technical folks, do. There's a thin line. I see that.
That is true. I agree with that. There is a thin line. So if you have had that experience with the audit, right, it's the same experience that you carry to security, but security has its own processes and things that they look for, right? So you are right. And it's good you have had that experience. Security, we do the same thing. When you go on site to do walkthroughs, you look for where they put their bin. What type of bin are they using? Are they using a bin that's there's a shredder there that anytime there's a maybe mistake, they mistakenly print something, do they shred it? Anything that contains PHI, they shred it, or they tossed it into the trash. Right, we check all those things during the physical walkthroughs.
Yeah, even they go as far as saying that that we log out of the computer while we are away from the computer. So the duties overlap a lot, and I'm afraid of those people. They can take your license. I hope when I do security, I'm doing technical things. I don't like them. I don't like what they do.
Yeah. So whenever people hear that there's HIPAA audits, people begins to shiver. Right. When I took my team to New York, I had a previous company that I was going was only one person, but this time when I was going, I took 4 people. Right. I employed 4 people to go with, right, and the whole environment was shaking. Right. So they know what HIPAA can do, because if we see that you are not doing the right thing, right, we write it in our reports and it can go against the employee, right? So we have to make sure we prepare you adequately, because if HIPAA itself comes for audit, that is terrible. They check every details, right? So that is it for HIPAA. Good. So thank you guys. Like I said, coming Wednesday, we are going to do the practical side of hipaa, and it is an interesting area, and you can get job here so easily. There's so many jobs over here too as well, right? And sometimes it goes hand in hand. If you want to do hipaa, you must know what we call high trust. So after, I think next week Saturday, we'll do high trust. Then after high trust, we'll do, I think, PCI DSS, then vendor management, vendor security assessment. So if you know hipaa, high trust, a little bit of PCI, then the vendor, that makes you a solid person that hospitals may want to have you. Because most of my students that are working in the hospital environment, they are doing vendor in addition to hipaa and the high trust, right? So we're going to go through the next four sessions. It's really an interesting area, and you don't want to miss it. So on this note, I just want to say thank you so much for being. Some of you have been very dedicated and faithful to your work. You've made your payment, and those of you who haven't made payment, as we discussed, I'm very sorry if you don't get any invite again. Not that it's deliberate. I mean, not that is I don't want you to be part of my class. You haven't fulfilled your side, so I will not invite you. I hate chasing people for money. I'm not going to do that. So this is just to throw that away for you to know that if you know you have your part to pay, please go ahead. Otherwise, I will not invite you for my next session. It means that whatever you pay, that is enough for where we got into. So thank you so much, and I will see you on Wednesday. And maybe I'm trying to see, I'm traveling this Sunday. Maybe I may send the invite earlier to, the invite for Wednesday's class may go out either tonight or tomorrow, Sunday morning. So please watch out for that, right? So I'm going to send you the practical material, what you're going to use for the practicals, then and the invite tomorrow morning, tonight or tomorrow morning for Wednesday, because I'm not going to go with my computer. Mostly I send it by Monday, but this time I'm going to send it earlier. So please watch out for that. But if you don't get it, then you should advise yourself. You know the reason why I didn't invite you. But thank you so much. And I look forward to meet you all on Wednesday. Have a good day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Alex.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Alex, you should
All
just
right. Thank you, Mr. Alex.
thank you.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
everyone.
Thank you, Vincent.
The delivery should be coming in by
Thank
1.
you so much.
months, 6 months to a year, put in the work, and that's it. You look yourself in the mirror and be like, yo, I'm fat. I'm undisciplined. Oh shit.